Righty then, it's no more news. Manchester United started the 2026-2027 season in abysmal fashion, losing 2-0 on opening day to Hull City, newly promoted Hull City. Today, I want to talk about something that I noticed during that match that I think Michael Carrick and his coaching staff really need to address, as if it's not addressed, it could be a limiting factor on how far Manchester United can go, not just this season, but even in future seasons, of course, if Michael Carrick, we're hoping that Michael Carrick remains in charge. And that is about the pressing structure. Now, we see that Manchester United pressed in a 4-2-4 shape. And this is something that has been prevalent across the preseason. Quite a few times in preseason, Manchester United pressed in that 4-2-4, or you can call it a 4-4-2, whichever way you want to call it. Some time ago, I did a video, which is on this channel, talking about the complexities of the 4-2-4 shape, why it works, some of the potential limitations of that shape. There's a link to that video in the description. You can go check that out as well. Now, I call it a pressing structure because it is a pressing structure, but Manchester United, for some reason, did not press Hull City high. For some reason, you would want to think and say, hey, it's a newly promoted side, first match of the season. You want to set the marker. You want to put your foot and say, hey, we're not messing around this season. We also know that they will be coming with that same energy, right? And so one of the things that you would think United should have done is to get at them from the first whistle, press them high, win the ball high, dictate play, dominate possession with the likes of Santos and Tielemans in the midfield and create chances and win the game, and then everybody's happy. But that was not what happened, because United did not press. United actually sat off them for the most part of the match. It was until much later, when they were already chasing the game, that they started to press. So the big question is why? Because logically, it feels right to press them. Because they have center backs who are not the greatest on the ball, right? So you would think that the right way to approach it is to press, but they didn't. So we want to look at the tactical reasons why they didn't actually press, and why I think it was probably the wrong decision. I mean, if you take a look at the results, you would want to say that's the wrong decision just by looking at the results. But tactically as well, I think that was the wrong decision. But before we get there, I think I have to emphasize the fact that, you see, it's not compulsory that every team presses high. It's even more so not compulsory that every team presses high when they play against every other team. However, if you take a look at the teams that have won the Premier League title and the Champions League recently, especially Paris Saint-Germain, PSG, and even the likes of Arsenal, Liverpool, and Manchester City, these are teams that chase after the ball almost all the time. Yeah, I think the only exception might be Arsenal, who, sometimes are content to sit in a mid block and just frustrate the opponent. Yeah, but even they, when they're playing against teams like Hull City, like Coventry, like they did the other day, they go after the ball. They chase you and win the ball high and try as much as possible to have as much possession as possible. But United, last season, under Michael Carrick, the later end of last season, they did not do that. Now, at that time, I thought that, it's probably because he didn't have the tools at his disposal. And you would argue that even now, he still doesn't have the tools at his disposal, because players like Andre Santos and Tielemans are not particularly suited to a pressing style of football. But the stark difference in the pressing structure, the pressing intensity of United and our other rivals, it is much. It's a lot. So I strongly believe that if United are going to move from top 4 challengers to actually going on to challenge for the title, Carrick needs to sort out the pressing structure. Now, this is the board. You have, of course, Hull City are set up in the shape they set up, which is, of course, the 5-4-1, but in possession, this is what their setup looked like in possession. And Manchester United, out of possession, like I mentioned earlier, took a 4-4-2, 4-2-4 shape, with Bruno Fernandes and Matheus Cunha right here, covering the passing lanes into the double pivot of Hull City. And then you also have Patrick Dogu on the left and Brian Mbeumo on the right. I mean, basically what they're trying to do is just ensure that they contain the center, pack the center, channel the play to the wing, and then they can press the wide players against the touchline. Now, it seems simple, and if the opponent do not know what to expect, they could really fall into some very terrible traps, right? However, like Hull City's manager mentioned, they had studied United. They knew that we were going to press in this shape, and they understood what to do. And what did they do? They ensured that if you watch the first few minutes of the game, you would see John Egan pretty much putting his foot on the ball, baiting Fernandez and Cunha. Come on, press us. We're at home. We don't mind a draw. Come on. Press us. We are ready for your press. In actual fact, they knew that United would not press, because the truth is that if United had pressed high, they might have found joy for two reasons. One, because like I mentioned earlier, these center halves, Shemi Ajayi, John Egan, and Mendy, they're not the strongest in terms of ball playing abilities, right? And apart from that, this shape could actually work, because take for instance, Fernandez presses from here, right? Fernandez starts to press Egan, right? And then using his cover shadow to cover Slater in the midfield, and of course expecting that Andre Santos and Tielemans will back up that press. If he presses him, right, he could force him out wide. Let's say he forces him out here to to pass the ball to Mendy. Dogu can cover for here, and then Cunha can continue that press, right? Of course, again, like I said, using his cover shadow to cover for Crooks in the midfield here. Now, the only option for Mendy is to pass down wide. Okay, he has to pass down wide. Now, when he passes down wide, Mbeumo can then apply that same pressure, with Mazraoui also applying pressure on Stroud, and then the rest of the team pushing up, ensuring that McBurney is able, in case the option is there for this particular switch. But in fact, that option will not be there, because if the pressure is intense enough, Giles will not have enough time to even look up to play that pass, right? His only option is to just find a way to boot it upfield and, just hope that McBurney wins the ball. And against Maguire, there's almost no chance that McBurney will be winning that ball. Now, so the point I'm trying to make is that if United had actually been intense with the pressing, there's a very good chance that they would have had a lot of high turnovers that would have led to, high quality chances. But they did not do that. Now, they decided to sit off. Let's put this back into position. They decided to sit off them and wait for them to play the ball into midfield. Just choke the midfield, ensure that there's no space. But now the problem that this creates is that, and this is a problem that has been prevalent all across preseason, especially against Leeds and AC Milan, right? Because when United are in this shape, it's so easy for this pass to come, right? And then this pass to come. Now, once this pass comes and United are still covering the center of the pitch, that's what they want. Because guess what? They never plan to progress the ball down the center of the pitch. This is what they're looking for Stroud to get Mazraoui here, for them to, utilize these spaces, for them to have these runs that pushes the defensive line back, and then just play the ball. Now, alternatively, you see a situation like, and we saw this a lot in the game, where Egan takes the ball, or one of the center halves takes the ball, and then somebody tries to arc his run, in such a way that it cuts out this passing lane. We saw it quite a few times, especially in the early stages of the game. This clipped pass, the pass just clipped over the head of whoever is pressing, and the moment this situation happens, United are exposed. We saw this so many times, and I think it led to the first chance that we saw, McBurney header that was saved by Senne Lammens. It's a brilliant save, by the way. So by United not pressing, they basically, number one, gave the center halves of Hull City so much time on the ball, allowing them to be able to find the passes. Because again, like I said, these are not the best ball playing center halves in the world. If they are put under pressure, there's every chance they're just going to boot the ball upfield. And we saw that in the second half, because the moment United started to chase the game, right, they started to press high, they started to press intensely. And you see, most times, the slightest pressure you put on the center half, they put the ball upfield. That's what they would have done in the first half. But guess what? They knew United wouldn't press them. And yeah, we eventually saw what happened. Another thing that not pressing high and intense did for Hull City was to give them more possession than they needed to have. So you see, especially in the opening exchanges, I mentioned in the review video I made, these guys, they came with intent. They wanted to win the match. They weren't messing about. Their fans understood the assignment. The players understood the assignment. They came for 3 points, right? The atmosphere was supercharged. And the best way United should have handled the game is to press them high, win the ball off them, and then bore the living daylight out of everybody. The fans are excited. They want some action. They want some tackles. They want some shots. They want some goals. But just take the ball off them and then pass it around in midfield. If they win the ball, by the time they try to build out from the back again, press them high, win the ball, play in midfield. It's only going to take 20-25 at best, half an hour, they will just sit back in their shape, and then you can now start to see the attacking patterns that we've seen all across preseason, right? But by you giving them possession, allowing them to have possession in their third, you are giving them onus, you are giving them more confidence, and you really did not need to do that. If you ask me, should Manchester United look to be a high pressing team like Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, for instance? No, not necessarily. In fact, that's not really our identity. However, when we're facing teams like this, like Hull City, teams that we are obviously better than, we have more technical players than them, you shouldn't let them have the ball. You shouldn't respect them that much. Yes, it's the Premier League. Every team is great, but you're the top team. You're the bigger team. You need to impose yourself on the opponents, and how you do that is by pressing them high, winning the ball, and then dictating play. Now, there are certain games that United will not be able to do that because you have similar technicians, and in fact, the build-up play of the opponent is so good. Teams like Brighton, teams like Arsenal, their build-up play is so good that they want you to press them. When you press them, they easily play around your press and you're totally exposed. But that's not Hull City. That's not Hull City. United should have pressed them high. So what are our key takeaways? First of all, Michael Carrick needs to decide, am I going forward with this 4-2-4 shape? Is it a shape that I think that can get the best out of this team right now? And if he's deciding that that's it, personally, I don't think that's the best way to press. I think there's 4-4 is such a shape that can be so easily manipulated. But if he decides that he can make it work, then it has to be really worked on the training ground, because at best, it looks shoddy. And without, if you take a look at the preseason, the reason why we saw some successes on the 4-4 shape was not necessarily because of how good the shape was, but it was more because of how good certain individuals were in backing up the press. For instance, Ahmad, for instance, Mason Mount, when he was fit, that when we press, the midfield is able to back it up. But in this case, Tielemans and Andre Santos are not the best pressing midfielders. In fact, they're far from it. Their qualities are on the ball. With the signing of Baleba, that is definitely going to change. But personally, I just think that they might need to find at least an alternative shape to use when pressing certain teams. Like I said earlier, against teams like this, you can't sit off them. You just cannot sit off them. You can't. You have to press them. You have to go after them. And I think this needs to be set in stone. I think even Bruno Fernandes mentioned that in one of his post-match interviews, saying that, we gave them too much possession, and that's one mistake that United made many times last season. And we're seeing that again this season. I hope they've learned their lesson. I hope that it's not a repeat against Ipswich. Ipswich is at home. It's at Old Trafford. First home game of the season. We should take the game to them. That's what we should be doing against teams like that. And even though Ipswich is a slightly more better team than Hull City, it's still what we should be doing at home against a team like Ipswich Town. So I hope that, Carrick takes the week to sort out these tactical issues, and we get the 3 points against Ipswich on Sunday. That's what I think, but do let me know what you think in the comments. What do you think about our pressing shape? What do you think about the 4-2-4 shape? Is it something that you think we should, Carrick needs to stick to and work on it to make it even better? Or do we just need to ditch it and find something that works? And what do you think about high pressing? Should United actually become a pressing team that presses every opponent at every given day and time of the season? Or do you think it's something that should depend on the team that we're facing? What do you think? I'd like to know in the comments. Do drop it in the comments, and please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Click on the notifications button as well so that you're notified when we have new content on the Football Slides TV. See you on the next one. Adios.